This morning I'd like to talk about love. We live in a moment where we're talking about a lot of things that aren't love. So I think let's talk about love. I think I'm a bit of a hippie, and I think that it's something we should talk as much about as if we can. We've got time in a day, let's talk about love. That's what we're going to do this morning. However, I could use someone's help. I'm going to ask a question, and I would love for you to answer them. Is there anyone that would be a volunteer to let me ask them a couple questions? If so, just raise your hand.
I'll help out.
Well, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I'd love for you to try and answer them in the way that feels good to you. Does that feel okay to you?
Yes.
Terrific. So, Sharona, I want you to imagine that you have a pint glass full of clean water. I want you to imagine that you take 2 cups of salt and pour it into the cup of water and stir it up. What has now taken place?
You have added salt to water.
And what will happen if you drink that water?
It will be salty to my taste.
Would that be potentially healthy or unhealthy?
I don't think it'll kill me, but on a long-term basis, it probably is not the healthiest.
Great. Now, let's say that you're standing next to a raging river, and you take 2 cups of salt and you pour it into the river. What will happen?
Not much.
Where will the salt go?
The salt will go into a larger quantity of water of the river and dissipate very quickly.
Thank you, Sharona. I appreciate your wisdom and your beautiful answers. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I ask Sharona these questions because this is our love. This is our heart. The barriers that we create to limit our love are self-imposed. We can choose to be a glass of water that will become terribly undrinkable with all of the salt that gets into it. Or we can become a great raging river, a Mississippi slow-moving river that will dissipate. I share this because our hearts are limitless. I often am asked by people, how do I love everybody? I only have so much love to give. Well, it feels that way if we don't work at love. You see, these barriers that we create around us, for instance, to keep with the metaphor of the glass, they're flexible, they're movable. Like an old 80s plastic above ground swimming pool. You can push them out with water, right? So we can expand our capacity for love. We are not limited on how much love we have. However, we are limited on how much energy we have as human beings, right? We have to think about how much energy it takes in each moment to do a particular task. Some of us can do our entire apartment cleaning in one day. Some of us need to break that up over a series of days. Some of us, it needs to be a week or 2, right? That's okay. Recognizing our own limitations in our energy and the expenditure helps us be able to recognize how we can practice and how we want to dedicate the deepening of, for the sake of this conversation, love. But the same conversation could be equanimity or our practice of action. So it is effort. It's a great deal of effort to love effectively. It's really, really easy to love a very lovable person. And it's very, very challenging to love someone that's prickly. Right? We all have that one person in our life that when we think of them, it takes little to no effort to love them. And then we have that one person that drives us nuts. And it takes every ounce of effort for us to accept them as they are. So how do we begin to practice deepening our love? Well, from my understanding, I think there's a few different things that we can do. One is we can start to recognize the conditions that we place around our love. What type of things are we building as barriers that are preventing us from loving that person as they are? Not loving an idea of them. Not loving a future version of them or even a past version of them. How do we develop the skills of recognizing that person as they are in that moment and go, I love you. Absolute authenticity. You can start by recognizing that that person is deserving of love. Regardless of their prickliness, regardless of their actions, regardless of their likability, they deserve love. If we walk into a garden, we don't just water the zucchini. We water the kale and the thyme, tomatoes. Some vegetables may be more beautiful than others. That doesn't mean they deserve more water. Some vegetables you may prefer more than others. I prefer eggplant. But maybe Joe hates eggplant. Maybe Joe prefers tomatoes. That doesn't mean that we neglect the tomatoes to feed the eggplant or vice versa. So how do we love someone that is difficult to love? We practice. We practice. We continue practicing. And we recognize that all of those things that get in the way of us truly, radically accepting that person, more often than not, arise out of that person's suffering or ignorance. The bad behavior that that person displays oftentimes is them asking for help or not having any point of reference on how to help themselves. That does not mean we need to fix people. I need to point that out. Boundaries are very important for us, and we need to pay attention to our boundaries. But we can change ourselves. And in doing so, that person can look at us and see a lesson to be learned simply just by observing someone living their life, loving people without condition. The Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh is famous for saying many things, and one of the things that he's famous for saying is, let your life be your lesson. In this moment, we have the opportunity to let our life be our lesson. I'm going to share one last aspect of this, and then I'm going to open up the floor for discussion, for questions. for perspectives. I think that's incredibly important. My teacher, the Venerable Thich Tom Min, is he's I believe the head Buddhist volunteer for Western Washington in the prisons. He goes into prisons and does what we do here for those that live in prisons. And he goes to, I believe, 4 facilities right now. And there have been multiple times when he's been asked, what is it like to work with murderers? And he answers it the same way each time. I don't know, I've never met one. And people's heads kind of turn and they look confused. They're like, well, you go into maximum security prisons. How have you not met a murderer? And he goes, well, I've had the great privilege of never being in the room with someone while they've been murdered. You see, that label, this very extreme label, murderer, it can only apply to the person in the act of doing it. Once it's over, that person is now just someone that has committed this act. They are no longer that action. We are only the action of which we're doing at that very moment. So if I'm hugging you, I am a hugger. If I'm smiling, I am a smiler. If I am loving you, I'm a lover. I play guitar. That doesn't mean I'm a guitarist. It means that I'm a guitar player when I'm holding a guitar. The rest of the time, I'm just a person that likes to play guitar. And hopefully is getting better at it. So we can apply this. I bring this up because this is another way that we can deepen our love, by recognizing that people are not the actions that they take. Everyone has the capacity to be better. And in Buddhism, we are taught that right there at the corner, right there, inside each one of the people I'm looking at, inside your little Hollywood square, each one of you is pure love. We use the word Buddha, awaken. That is your baseline. So when we get caught in prejudice, conditions, expectations, when we get caught in suspicion, we can come back to our heart and go, I have the ability to love this person just the way they are. That doesn't mean that I have to invite them to my birthday party. It doesn't mean that they have to be my fave. That doesn't mean I have to call them in times of need. But I can love them simply as they are. These are my words for this morning, and I'd love to open up the floor